Tim Coventry here, RotoWire WildCard, Super WildCard weekend, Sunday games. We had a great Saturday, crazy games, maybe not classically great games, but man, they were entertaining, right? Definitely entertaining games. Seattle kept it close for a half. I really think when Jonathan Abram decided to bend Deebo Samuel's leg, I think it pissed the 49ers off a little bit, and they got a little more purpose. But that turnover in the red zone when Geno fumbled on the strip, that was a big one, man. That was a big one. It was a fun game. And, I wanted the Chargers to win. I liked the Chargers. But right when it was 27-7, I told the person I was watching the game with, I'm like, you know what? I could see a scenario where it's going to either cover and they're going to have a chance to win. And wow, it completely happened. It's momentum's a major thing, right? And really some poor coaching in the second half. But let's talk about Sunday. All right, let's see what we got going for Sunday here. So we've got a slate of 3 games today. Big football Sunday. I can answer any questions you have if you are playing DFS, if you're gambling. We'll break these games down, but I definitely will want to answer your questions. All right, so we have Miami and Buffalo kicking off at 1:05 Eastern time today. Bills are big favorites here. I thought that the line would get bigger than it was. And I'm going to actually check the line to see if it moved. So the line I last saw it was 13.5. I really thought this line would get upwards of 16 points, but it's 14 right now. So the line is 14. That's an interesting spot for the line. And that line, we'll explain how this works because it looks too good to be true. How can Miami on the road hang with a third-string quarterback? Their left guard, Liam Eichenberg's out. Their left tackle, Teron Armstead, has numerous injuries. They're talking about surgery in the offseason for him. How does he play? And if he plays, what level will he be at? Raheem Mostert broke his thumb and he's out. So how do they compete? Well, this is the playoffs, right? And in the playoffs, you have to play as if it's a 1-game season. You do not treat it like the regular season. Mike McDaniel's a pretty sharp guy. He's done some pretty smart things throughout the season. So how does he craft a game plan to make it competitive and long shot steal the game? Here's what I think he'll do. Could be wrong, but Buffalo is not, and I know what the metrics say, whatever. Buffalo's not a good run defense. Don't care what they say. They are not a good run defense. If we take the numbers over the season, Buffalo plays with a lead a lot. When they play with a lead, teams don't run. Run defense looks better. They're not a good run defense. Miami, down the 2 linemen, that hurts. But they have a good blocking scheme. Here's what they have to do. First of all, they're probably not getting a lot out of Skylar Thompson in the passing game. So they have to, first of all, use him in some RPO capacity to try to freeze linebackers. Here's the other thing I think they're going to do. I think they're going to use a lot more than usual jet motion with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. They are going to want to get them the ball in these little toss passes, those shovel passes. They're going to want to get handoffs. They're going to want to use them on fakes and then screens away from that. They're going to want to use them fakes and runs with Jeff Wilson. This is going to have to become a very weird offense. But why might it work? The speed of Hill and Waddle. You see, if Buffalo counters, and they don't typically like to put extra bodies in the box. They're typically a nickel base. They have an extra defensive back on the field. They know the pass is a much more dangerous way to get beat than the run. And by using Hill and Waddle in this weird way, a lot of jet motion and all this business, if Buffalo were to put an extra man in the box and one of these speed receivers gets to the edge, good night. Good night. One less defender to stop them once they get past the second level, it would be nightmare. So Buffalo has to pretty much play their normal zone, keeping things in front of them, trying to limit plays. Now, I could see Miami even going into the bag of tricks, double reverses. Hill gets the ball here, come back, Jalen Waddle. Imagine how the defense has to react to that speed when going in one direction. And then if you give it to a similarly speedy guy, nobody's Tyreek Hill fast, but Jalen Waddle's in the ballpark, right? And then you come back and you use some action on that. And ultimately, the defense can't be saying it's predictable because at any point they keep going with this. What are they going to do? Speed is speed. If they do the second handoff, great. If they don't do it, you get the first handoff, you still got the edge with speed. And then Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson's been down the last few games. Now, he's been hurt. when he first came to Miami, he was 6.5 yards a carry in those first few games, and he was really strong in Miami. And it seems like those injuries caught up with him a little bit, but he will be a part of the game plan here, and they'll use him in the screen game. I don't think there's going to be any downfield passing element here. I think that they're not going to put Skylar Thompson in that position. And we talk about this gimmicky game plan that mitigates the pass rush. Gregory Rousseau's been great. Epinesa, Boogie Basham, they've been very nice in a rotational role. They split reps and they're very, very good, but you take that away from them. So I do expect to see a lot of gimmickry, and I see a very different offense we've seen all year. Skylar Thompson might not attempt 20 passes in this game, even if they're trailing, but we'll see how that goes. Now they go way down, of course. So what else on the offensive side? I don't think Mike Gesicki's a factor. He has been on and off all season, especially with a third-string quarterback. Don't expect much there. Trent Sherfield, probably not. A few possession catches over in the middle. Maybe if they, try some just slant routes when they're using the run options and things like that. Skylar Thompson might run for a little bit. He's, as Mario Puig's the scout at RotoWire. He scouts the college guys really well. And he said that he thinks that based on his college experience, Thompson could pull it off for a game. He has enough ability and practice in college from that where you can do some RPO concepts. But other than that, it's going to have to be perfect for Miami. Now, let's get to the other side of the ball. And let's start with Miami's defense, because I'm talking about the desperation mode that they need to be in to compete. So the first thing is that Miami has very good pass rushers in their front seven. Four guys who can get after the passer. They need to sell out here. Sometimes you'll blitz Josh Allen, he'll break the tackle, and he'll run for 40 yards. That's life. Stephon Diggs, he's going to beat you. The secondary of Miami is not good. So, but I expect to see a lot of pressure. Disguise pressure when they can. Josh Allen's been careless with the ball. I want to say 14 picks and 13 fumbles. I want to say that's right. Regardless, the film shows he's putting the ball in harm's way more than he did last year. Oh, one quick back up to Miami's point. They want to drain the play clock as much as possible, too. They want to shorten this game. So Miami, I do think that there's going to be, they were heavy blitz earlier in the year. They backed off quite a bit as the season went on. For this game, they have to go to that heavy blitz. Now, what will Buffalo do here? I think Buffalo used the screen game. Miami is not good defending the screens. If they're going to blitz, I think the quick out screens to Devin Singletary had one game, I want to say it was 8 catches. He piled them up. James Cook hasn't been used enough as a receiver, but he might see some options here. So I think we see screen game. I do think that Miami, although they have an excellent run defense, if they're going to blitz a lot, they might lose some of that gap integrity. So I think there could be some success. But ultimately, Josh Allen is going to have to be in tune with this more than Eddie. So I think that Josh Allen is going to just run. I think a lot of times when he sees a blitz coming, he's going to do that quick one step. All right, I see what I've got. There's a lane. I'm gone. I think in the playoffs, he has at least 88 yards, I believe, in his last 3 playoff games. He does dial it up and put it on his own shoulders a bit in the playoffs. And I do think that'll happen here. Stephon Diggs gets his, of course. He hasn't had a great second half. His 100-yard game last week, I want to say that was his first in 8 or 9 weeks. It was a long period before he had one. So the passing offense hasn't been high volume, and the other receivers really haven't stepped up. Gabe Davis has not consistently stepped up. Isaiah McKenzie had a little run earlier in the season where he's doing okay. He's injured now. They don't know. I imagine he's playing, but they did elevate Cole Beasley up for this one. So it's possible that McKenzie has a real light role. If he's limited at all, his speed is what he's got. If it's a hamstring, probably not so good. And Dawson Knox, though, has been a very emergent part of this offense over the last month. They're using him quite a bit more. So Brian McB23 is on Instagram, and I am definitely covering that Ravens-Bengals game for you. So I will predict that one up for you, Brian. But I'm going to go through one at a time. So we'll get to that game. We're just finishing up the Miami-Buffalo one right now. But thank you. I'm glad you're here. All right, so like I said, Dawson Knox, I think, continues to be a factor. Miami does not cover the tight end well, so there's a lot of production to be had there. So that is something that they're going to continue on. They're going to work with, and I think that's going to be very, very useful. I don't like betting anytime touchdown scorer. Dawson Knox put up 90-ish yards and a touchdown the last time they played a few weeks back, not too long ago. He is a good bet to score here. His role in the offense has been really on the up. And Allen's been looking for him, and they've been scheming him there. So I do think that, if you're one to bet the anytime touchdown, I think Dawson Knox has a good chance of hitting that. I do like Josh Allen over the rushing yards. It was 50.5 the last time I checked. I do think with the blitz I'm expecting to see, I do think we see 2 to 3 long runs here, because when you blitz, you kind of, again, lose that integrity at the second level, and Josh Allen, they can make that happen. I think that that's going to be their great path. I don't necessarily like Stephon Diggs over the yardage. Like, I love Stephon Diggs, one of the best receivers in the league, but just the trend of him not having gotten it done. And the one thing, even if they're going to blitz, they will bracket him, I think. I think they'll bracket him, and they'll just see if Josh Allen will go elsewhere to the other receivers that they're not really scared of. I mean, Diggs will get his. He'll have at least a good floor game. He should get you at least 65, 70 yards, right? But I don't know that he's going into the 80s, and he could. Look, if he breaks a long play off a blitz, 60-yard touchdown, it could happen at a drop of a hat. So I'm not saying to bet the under. I would lay off it more than anything. I would, but I wouldn't tempt it. But I wouldn't necessarily be aggressively betting his over. And Josh Allen's passing yards, I don't know if he gets there. I think between him running, Miami shortening the game. See, that's a big key. If Miami can shorten this game, that's a big deal for them. The betting angle is tough on this one, because if McDaniel does pull out the gimmicks, I think he will, and shorten the game, and I think they would have success moving the ball. But by shortening it, in a game where you're getting 14. And I always say this, when a line looks too good to be true, raise your eyebrow. This line, in my mind, should be 17. It's not. It's 14. This is not two comparable teams. So I would be inclined, if you do the teaser thing where you can add 6 or 7 points, I would almost be inclined to take a teaser leg with adding those 6 points to the Dolphins. But you could go the other way too. If you take 6 off of the Bills, that puts them down to -8, which was better when it was 13.5. You can move a 7-point teaser, move it under the 7 number. But so that was an option there. 7-point teaser might be better in this one if you get the Bills down to 7. But I do think if you add 7 to Miami, I think that is a lot of points. They're going to shorten the game. I would not necessarily just jump and take the 14. There are too many variables in Buffalo. Buffalo has more paths to crushing them than Miami has to keeping it closer. That they ultimately play this 10 times, and McDaniel's gimmicky. I think there are 2 of those 10 under the gimmicky circumstance where they actually cover that number. And I think there's 8 where Buffalo covers it. So I think, and most of those is pretty easily, because if they get a lead in this game and Miami has to chase, that's where it's problematic. And that's where you can see some turnovers late. So in terms of the final score in this game, I do think it's lower than anticipated, because Miami, I think, has success shortening it. So I'm going to say the final score in this game, and we're going to put it at exactly 14. We're going to put this game at 27-17. And how Miami gets 17 points, we're going to think that Tyreek Hill has something to do with that. Oh, not 27-13. 27-13. That was a 14-point spread. 27-13. That's what I wanted. So I'm going to go 27-13 on that game. So only 40 points. I think it's lower because Miami shortens the game. All right. And again, if you guys have questions on it, just dump them in the chat and we'll definitely answer them for you. So let's go to the next game here, and we'll go to the afternoon game. It's 4:40 Eastern time. Giants at the Vikings. We know they had that great game a few weeks ago. In that game, it was 13-10 at the end of 3 quarters, and then it ends up going 27-24 in a furious fourth quarter. It was fun to watch. In this game, the Giants came out pass heavier than usual, and it was smart. Brian Daboll understands you attack the weakness of the opponent. And at the time, Minnesota was one of the better run defense in the league. Now, they have honestly slipped in the last month or so. They're not quite the dominating unit, because we faded a lot of running teams and running backs against Minnesota for a good chunk of the season. We always are pliable in this business, right? We always understand the recent trends. They are not as shut down as they were. So there can be some Good advantage here. 4-door. All right, glad you're here. That's awesome. Thank you. So in that game, attacking Minnesota through the air, that was optimal. And that's what they did. And they used Saquon Barkley heavily as a receiver. And he understood the idea Minnesota has struggled greatly in defending running backs as receivers. So a prop I really like today is Saquon Barkley over 3.5 yards. They had success with it in the first meeting. Minnesota does not have the personnel to deal with that. And it will ultimately be a great way to get their best weapon involved. They want Barkley heavily involved. So I love the prop over 3.5 catches here. And Richie and all the receivers were good in that game. Minnesota struggled to stop him. Daniel Jones threw for like 334 yards in that game. He also ran for a decent number of yards. So he threw 1 touchdown. So anyway, Richie James to me is probably the best option of the receivers. The slot area they're all easy to attack on the Vikings. The Vikings are not a good secondary, but with the zone they play, and we used to think of the middle of the field as a tough place to attack the Vikings, has not been the case this year. The linebackers have not been good in coverage. Richie James could get in that net in the middle of the field, and I do think he gets a number of catches. I think Richie James will get you in the neighborhood of 5 catches for 55 yards. I think it's going to be a nice, solid game for him. So he's a nice player to focus on. And the way the offense is run, they do look to him. I noticed with Darius Slayton, he was making big plays in most games for a stretch, maybe week 6-ish to about week 14-ish. And then since then, though, we haven't seen the same amount of big plays. Like the league is kind of like getting that. That's what he wants to do when we want to limit that. So they do look to limit those big plays. And so Isaiah Hodgins, he's been a scoring machine. He's maybe 4 of the last 5 games he scored touchdowns, and but he's not he hasn't been putting up big yardage totals, and so but he's very efficient in the red zone. So he's a player I'm kind of like fading in terms of betting this game. I just don't have a good feel of where he ends up, but I do think Richie James, not to the level of the Barkley prop, where I think a 3.5 catch is over. It's a very strong prop. I think that, if you're building a same game parlay, you're looking at Richie James for yardage as part of that as a solid option there. Daniel Jones, it's tough. I don't exactly know what Minnesota's counter punch should be from the last game. I don't think they can do much. The heavy play action they use really helps Daniel Jones. It's been just wonderful coaching by Brian Daboll, because Daniel Jones is very dependent upon that play action to get the players open quickly. And with the run threat of both Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones, it works. And so they're able to get the ball out and frequently to receivers that have a bit of an open look. So that's worked out very well. But if the Giants have success on the ground, they may not feel the need to lean in the pass. We could see Minnesota putting an extra defensive back because of the last game, reacting to Brian Daboll, where Brian Daboll is usually a step ahead. Brian Daboll is one of those few coaches that will understand what the opposing coach wants to do, and then he will make the preemptory move on that. And so that's why this one is a little difficult to handicap, but that's overall, I do think the Giants have decent success again with the football. I don't know this game is as much of the 51-point shootout as it was last night. 51's not really a shootout, but it was 27-24. It was good. I don't know if the game gets to this level. I think a lot of people want it to get there. I think playoff football, and I think there's going to be enough adjustments between the two sides where that's going to help out a bit with that. On the Viking side of the ball, fortunately, center Garrett Bradbury is going to play. He was injured. If he was out, that would be a massive loss. They're already down right tackle Brian O'Neill, which is a huge loss. He wasn't Christian Darrisaw left tackle good, but he was very good in the run and the pass game. So his presence definitely is missed here. And the Giants' pass rush has really been coming on. Kayvon Thibodeau throughout his rookie season has really made a massive leap. And then Dexter Lawrence on the interior. It frees up Leonard Williams on the outside a bit. So they really can get after the passer. Now, remember, their offensive coordinator, Don Martindale, he loves to blitz. They blitzed heavy in that first game. And actually, Kirk Cousins was able to beat the blitz. And a lot of times the blitz left Justin Jefferson single covered. Good luck with that. But that's their nature. They're going to blitz. And I don't think there's a scenario where they come in and say, we're not blitzing here. I think they're going to stick with who they are. I don't think they want to be in a world. And they don't. Adoree Jackson is expected back, their corner for this one, which is good. But he's not hanging with Justin Jefferson. So we don't have to really worry about that. And if they blitz, they're not really using complicated doubling and tripling and things like that. So Jefferson's going to get his in this game regardless. It's when the Vikings played the Patriots on Thanksgiving night, I think it was. I remember saying Belichick's going to try to take him out, but he doesn't have the horses to do it. And Jefferson's going to eat, and Jefferson went off on him. It's the same deal here. They'll want to take him out. They don't have the horses to do it. So in Vegas, when they're doing the props on these things, you very rarely see a wide receiver at 100 yards. There's just too many ways for Vegas to lose those bets when you put that at 100 yards. So 91.5 yards where Jefferson is sitting. And Jefferson, when you look at him this year, he's been like, he's either over 120 or he has those, few games where he's under 50. He's like never in that range of, 55 to 85. He's never in that range. He's either getting it done or whatever happened, it didn't get done. It's not like it's an okay game. He has had, the numbers are not right in front of me. I probably have them here. Let me just see let me tell you what he's done. Jefferson has at least 107 yards in 9 of his last 13 full games. He didn't play a full game last week. So, I mean, in this matchup, nothing to worry about. He went off on them the last time he played. I want to say it was over 120 yards. He went off on them. So Justin Jefferson, I believe betting the prop on the over on him is an excellent way to go. Now, in that game, TJ Hawkinson had an excellent game as well. Now, Xavier McKinney, their safety, is back. He's good in coverage. And that could be really pivotal here. He may not be able to shut down TJ Hawkinson, but we may not have that 100-yard, 2-touchdown game we had in that first meeting because Xavier McKinney, I think, will be a significant upgrade over the backups that they were trying to deal with Hawkinson, and he just was roaming open. So I do think it is a little bit of a tactical advantage for them here. Again, Hawkinson still wins the battle, but this is probably more of a 45 to 55-yard game for him. KJ Osborne's a guy to watch. He's actually been on it's not that big game he had in that blowout comeback against Indianapolis, because I faded him the week after that. People wanted to start, no. But since that game after the Indianapolis game, KJ Osborne is beginning to see his role increase a bit. Adam Thielen starting to see his role decrease a bit. Adam Thielen appears to have lost a step. It's not good right now, but we do see that KJ Osborne has stepped up a bit. And I'll tell you some numbers on him. He has at least 59 yards in 3 of his last 4 games. And on the season, he has 41 or fewer yards in all but 4 games. So he's had a lot of down games, but in the recent, the uptick has been there. He's also scored in 3 of his last 5 games. Those aren't sticky. You can't really extrapolate that to say he's going to score here. But his receiving prop is 38.5 yards. And I think with McKinney maybe limiting Hawkinson a bit and Thielen having lost a step, I do think KJ Osborne is a reasonable choice to go over that 38.5-yard prop. I do like that one. Again, the best prop in this game to me is still Saquon Barkley over 3.5 receptions. Dalvin Cook's a tough one because he is not the consistently explosive runner he was in past years. He'll get the occasional big run, and his yardage due to volume has been there, but he has not been consistently good. This is a beautiful matchup for him, but it hasn't mattered. He's had a lot of beautiful matchups, and he has not really cashed them. He has 200-yard games all year, and he hasn't had any since week 10. So there's something with that. Now, he has hit 80 yards 7 times this year, and he's been a touchdown machine, scored in 9 games. So there's that. But and so Minnesota, top 6 run blocking line. Now, like I said, their right tackle, Brian O'Neill, is done for the year. That hurts. But the Giants have not been good against the run. But like I said, I don't know that Cook is able to take advantage of that. And it's just been too long of a track record this season. Cook has had 37 or fewer yards in 3 of his last 5 games. Now, there were some game script issues there, like the Green Bay game. They fell so far behind. But regardless, it's been a lower volume of Cook. So again, the best prop of the day, I'm going to keep repeating, is Saquon Barkley, 3.5 receptions over. But Cook, if you're doing the same game parlay, putting him under on yardage is a reasonable proposition. Now, you know the deal with this. Because he's Dalvin Cook, he could break a 40-yard run and it's over. But probability is he's going to be the running back he's been, and he's not hitting the over on this one as well. So how does this game shake out? Again, I think it's a little bit lower scoring than that 27-24 one we had last time. I think both coaching staffs make adjustments. They kind of see what the other team wanted to do. I think there will be ultimately Minnesota will be up and down on offense. Justin Jefferson get his done, but I think there will be gaps in the game where they're not getting on with that. When they get in second and long and that Giants' recent pass rush, which has improved, is getting there, I think that's going to make things problematic for Kirk Cousins. But they blitz a lot. If they backed off that a little bit, they could get pressure, maybe without those an obvious down and distance. We'll see how that shakes out. And then the Giants side, again, I do expect they're going to have some bubbles, like ups and downs here, because they're not really using much of a downfield passing attack recently. They used to throw deeper to Slayton. That hasn't been materialized. So I think a lot's underneath, but I think that, the holding calls, that had to put you behind, incomplete passes, second and long. There's enough of those, I think, where there's going to be some punch. So I think this game is a bit lower scoring. I think we're looking more of a 23-20 game. Now, the question is, who's going to win? And that's where I'm flummoxed, because somebody is going to win 23-20. I don't have a handle on it. Ultimately, here's where I'm going to lay it. I'm going to say this. I don't think the talent advantage that people are saying Minnesota has on the Giants is really that significant. But I will say this. The one player, if Minnesota says, you know what, we've got to go here. If they decide to say, you know what, Justin Jefferson, win this game for us. I do believe that the Giants don't have an answer for him, no, regardless of how they scheme. I do believe Kirk Cousins has shown he will throw Jefferson the ball as often as he has to. And I think ultimately the star in this contest is the one that makes a difference. 23-20, I'm going to go Minnesota here. This game is a coin flip. This game is a coin flip. Again, the second best prop, I think, in this game, like I said, is Justin Jefferson over 91.5 yards, but not far behind the Saquon Barkley 3.5. Those are the two you want to look at. KJ Osborne, if you're doing a number of legs, over on yardage for him. Richie James, you can go receptions or yards on him. Those are four plays that are good. The two best of the two secondary ones for sure. Again, I don't think TJ Hockenson has a game. Adam Thielen under on the receiving yardage. He has really struggled down the stretch. It's really had a dip over the last 5 to 6 weeks. It's significant. All right, one more to go here. We are going to talk about the Ravens at the Bengals. Sunday Night Football, 8:15 Eastern time. The Bengals are, let's check if the line has changed on this one. 8.5. At one point, it was 9.5, and they got bet down a full point. As we just start this, John Harbaugh, I'm not even talking about the players. John Harbaugh getting more than a touchdown. That's something. That is really something. So let's break this game down. Now, Lamar Jackson's not playing. We fully expect that Tyler Huntley is going in this one. So that is better than the Anthony Brown route. There's that. Tyler Huntley has not been very good this year. Now, we remember last year, he came on. There was no film on him. He had the huge game against Green Bay. He had a second good game. And then all of a sudden, he started to level out pretty quickly. And the touchdowns weren't coming. The rushing yardage wasn't quite the same. And then this year, that film being out, he has really struggled. Now, they don't have weapons. I get that. All right. We understand there's not Mark Andrews, and that's it, really. Don't really trust the receivers. But that said, once the film was out on Huntley, he was kind of exposed. And he's a backup quarterback. Not his fault. Good player, but he's a backup quarterback, right? So, again, I always try to understand how the coach approaches. John Harbaugh is a winner. John Harbaugh's gotten to a Super Bowl. John Harbaugh has gotten through the playoffs. He got through many tough games. So what is he going to do here? I think there's one path here for him. We know Cincinnati's a good run defense. Very good run defense. DJ Reader's a beast in the middle. But here's what Baltimore, I think, is going to do. They're not going to put it on Tyler Huntley's shoulders. They know their receivers aren't going to win. They also know that Cincinnati is very, very unlikely to play with ultra heavy boxes. It's kind of like not their personnel. And if they do, it might play to a disadvantage. So, first of all, we're going to see a ton of Patrick Ricard not touching the ball, blocking. He's going to be in as a fullback, hybrid, H-back, might line up as a tight end. He'll be on the field a ton. Multiple tight ends for sure. So we might see what we call 22 personnel, 2 running backs, 2 tight ends. We might see plays with 23 personnel, 2 running backs, 3 tight ends. We might see all of this. We might see plays with 3 running backs in the backfield. Regardless, John Harbaugh, I believe, is going to have Greg Roman stick to a heavy, heavy dose of the run. But we got to go a step further. J.K. Dobbins typically gets 12 to 17 carries a game. there is no way John Harbaugh can go into this game saying, and I know Gus Edwards missed last game with a concussion. He cannot go in this game saying, all right, I'm going to do this where, JK, you get 15, Gus, you get 9 or 10, and we're calling it. He can't do that here. It's got to be J.K. Dobbins getting 25 carries, Gus Edwards just giving him a breather when he needs it. That's going to be about it. I believe that's the way he handles this. It's going to be heavy personnel, J.K. Dobbins running the football, occasional screens to try to catch an over-pursuing defense. But I think if they go the J.K. Dobbins, and he's had success against Cincinnati in his brief career when he's played, and I do expect he'll have success here. Very explosive runner. When you have enough bodies blocking, you're going to be fine. And they're going to run away from DJ Reader. They're not going to be pounding it up the middle. They'll go off tackle. They'll go sweep. They'll go whatever they need to do to get the ball to the perimeter, and they'll use pulling guards. They use Patrick Ricard as a weapon blocking out, and I really believe that J.K. Dobbins is going to have a really successful game here. And in the passing game, look, I can't predict anything. I can't even predict Mark Andrews to do much here because I ultimately think Cincinnati goes in saying, Mark Andrews can't beat us. If you fear no receivers. They got rid of Deshaun Jackson, so they don't have even a realistic deep threat. Yeah, Demarcus Robinson, fine, whatever. He's not a deep threat. He can run downfield. Anybody can, not a deep threat. So I think you bracket Mark Andrews and you try to make the Ravens uncomfortable. I think that's what they're going to do. Now, remember, Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator of Cincinnati, we talk about how great he game plan, and he does. There's no question. Lou Anarumo was fantastic. But remember where he's made his best adjustments. Now, I'm not saying this is all he can do, but he's made his adjustments against passing offenses in the second half of games, making adjustments, taking away what the pass offense wants to do. And realistically, you're in the NFL. You're not facing teams that are coming in saying, we're going to run the ball 40 times today. He's not really making that adjustment. Ultimately, your only adjustment is personnel. How many more bodies can you put in there? But the Ravens are going to match that amount plus one. So I don't know what the break point is that Lou Anarumo can do. Anarumo is going to be out of options. You can only dedicate so many bodies to the run. Their defense is built to defend the pass with their front linemen being greater against the run. But they don't have like these extra thumpers that they can put in the lineup. So all that said, Baltimore is going to have some success. Are they scoring 40 points? Of course not. They just need to muddy the game up. They need to keep field position in check. They need to run clock, and they need to score enough points. Defensively, Baltimore is going to do well against this offense. First of all, since they got Roquan Smith, they are very good against the run. Patrick Queen has become a different player. Patrick Queen, when he was like the guy, he was overwhelmed. But they could just use him like a missile now. Just either sending on the pass rush, sending you to blow up the run. And Roquan will clean up the mess that he leaves behind when he doesn't get it done. When there was no guy to clean up that mess, it was ugly. Ravens were getting gashed. So there's that. So the run game for the Bengals has been a little bit problematic. Now, they lost left guard Alex Kappa to an injury last week, and a few weeks ago, they lost their right tackle, Lyle Collins, to a season-ending injury. So this is a line, over the course of the season, they were good in run blocking, but they are significantly hindered with these injuries against a Baltimore defense that's excellent against the run. So I don't think a lot gets going. Now, a prop. First of all, I should say, I like J.K. Dobbins. It was 61.5 yards. I love J.K. Dobbins over at 61.5 yard rush prop. Now, another one, Joe Mixon in the last 3 weeks, it's 5, 7, and 5 targets. He's getting targets. Baltimore is going to stop the run. They're also going to get some pressure. Burrow's been using the screen game a bit more later, and Mixon's been getting a better snap share the last couple weeks after he was getting too close with Samaje Perine. Mixon's going to get those receptions. I think he's 3.5 receptions as well. Maybe 2.5. I think he might be 2.5. But either way, 3.5 or 2.5. I think he gets 4 catches to 5 catches. Maybe even get 6. I think they're going to have to use him as a receiver. So I think that it's not as good as the Dobbins prop. I guess it's a secondary prop, but I like the Joe Mixon receiving prop as well. Not for yardage. The Ravens give up receptions. Actually, I want to say they're bottom 9 in receptions over the last 4 weeks. But they don't give up a lot of yardage. So Mixon will get catches. I don't know they turn to big yardage, but it's better than getting a 1-yard run, getting a 4-yard catch. So John Harbaugh and Greg Roman are going to understand that. So I do think that it's a very good bet going at Mixon in the receiving game. And Mixon has at least 3 receptions in every game. I want to say every game all year. I got to look back, except for week 14. It's been a long time. It's been 3 or more receptions. I don't have that number in front of me, so I apologize. I'm a little off, but it's been a lot of games with 3 or more catches. So he's just been regularly a part of that game. What else do we say here? All right, so Jamar Chase. So Jamar Chase, his big games this year came against NFC South teams. He had his 230-yard games against them. His 2 touchdown games came against them. He's been limited a lot. He hasn't had more than 132 yards in any game all year. And again, those 2 games came against the NFC South. So he hasn't had big yardage games. 2 games against the Ravens. 7 catches for 50 on 12 targets. He got 13 targets in the last game. 8 for 86 and a touchdown. It is the Ravens understand how to put the roof over Jamar Chase and handle him. All those targets, the production has not been there. Now, he's Jamar Chase. So if you're betting him under, Jamar Chase, again, anytime can have a 70-yard touchdown if they're on the 30-yard line. Wherever they're at, he can get a touchdown at any drop of a hat. So you understand that. But probability, I'm putting Chase right in that 80-yard range. I think 80 yards is a very, very strong bet for him in this game. I'll put the range literally 70 to 95. I think the range is there because he has gotten targets against this opponent. Now they're healthier. Stevens, the slot corner, is back because Humphrey's not going to play in the slot in this one. But he's not only slot corner because they've been playing their rookie safety. Oh man, why is his name evading me? The Notre Dame kid. Name evaded me. I'm sorry, the Notre Dame kid, but he's 6'4". He's a really good safety, but he's playing slot corner. He's done well. Big body. That's not good for Tyler Boyd. That could limit Tyler Boyd in this game. Man, I'm really upset I can't remember his name. That's terrible of me. Anyway, Marlon Humphrey's been healthy. He's there. Marcus Peters, he's going to be healthy for this game. So, and they rough up T. Higgins a bit. This is not a physical matchup. Is not the greatest matchup for T. Higgins. Not like he can't win, but in this scenario against Baltimore, he really hasn't been dominant against them. So I do think that T. Higgins is not having a big game here. Now, I know that first matchup, he was shut out. He wasn't really. He was in uniform. He was on the sideline. They said he snuck on the field for one play, so he didn't play in that game. He was active and dressed, but it was a pregame injury he had. So understand that's the deal. Now, T. Higgins, 61.5 yards. I do think he goes under that. Tyler Boyd's 33.5 yards. Again, you know the drill. If he gets one long play, it's done. But probability, if they play 10 times, 7 of those games, he's going under that 33.5 yard number here. So, and it's really bothering me why I can't. I want to say his name is Kyle. I can't get that stinking name of the safety for the Ravens. So I'm going to look this up right now, and I'm just really embarrassed about that one. But and here we go. And there we go. Actually, man, Kyle Hamilton. Wow, how did I not get that? That's terrible. Jim, you need to get fired for this. All right, so we get back to our final points on this game. Hayden Hurst he's going to be a tough one to bet on for props because there's a path where he gets good yardage, and the Ravens have not been great against the tight end. They give up middling yardage. Pat Fryer with a 36 and a 33. David Njoku at a 71 and a 28. Juwan Johnson at a 42. And Hurst is right in that bucket. He's a 31.5 yard prop. It's too close to what they typically give up. I am comfortable fading this one. He's getting targets. He's healthier now. Yeah, Vorador, thanks, man. I was really upset with myself there. Man, Kyle Hamilton. Tell you everything about him, and I couldn't get his name. That's hilarious. So how do I see this game shaking up? Let me talk about Joe Burrow for a minute. Again, this is not a good matchup for him. They're going to get pressure on him. They do a good job about reducing Chase's ability. In the last 2 games against him, he had 215 and 217 yards. Now, he blew him up last year, but the Ravens clearly made adjustments. Burrow, the prop is somewhere in the 268 range. Let me check if I have it on the notes here. The prop should be 268. I don't think he gets there. I think Dobbins is going to shorten the game. I think that's going to be critical. I think Ravens are going to continue to keep a lid over the defense. I don't see Burrow getting there. And obviously he's a great quarterback. He's going to be fine. This is a divisional game against a division that adjusts to each other very well coached. So 240, 250, maybe. I don't see 268. Now, here's the caveat. Like I said earlier with Chase, if Chase breaks free for a 70-yard touchdown, you lose. Probability, he's not getting there. He can. Probability says he's not getting there. We live in a world of probabilities. The probability was the Chargers losing after being up 27-0, but they lost, right? Yeah, exactly. That's terrible. Man, I wanted them to win. All right, so how do I see this game shaking out? I do not think John Harbaugh is going to be unable to cover that spread. Getting 8.5, if you got 9.5 earlier, even better. There's not a ton of scoring here. This is playoff football the way we love it, unless you're the offensive guy. I think this game comes down to Cincinnati's going to win. I think Cincinnati has enough to pull this one out. I think the deficiency at quarterback and receivers is going to be a little too much for the Ravens. If they play this one 10 times, I think the Ravens win 2. I think they win 2 of them. Definitely win 2. But I think 8 times Cincinnati wins this one. And I think the final score on this game, I think we're looking at 20-13. Like 20-13, so it goes a low 33 points scored. They're going to get 20 on the board, 13 for him. Ravens will cover that 8.5 spread with a little bit to spare. If you're teasing it, you could tease it either direction. So let's talk about teasers. So I did a 7-point teaser on all 6 of the games. So the first 2, I won those. You would have won if you had to bet the 49ers have gotten that. But the late game last night, you could have bet either side of the teaser and won because it was a 1-point game. And either way, you would have Chargers would have gotten points and Jaguars. So you won either way. So in the early game, if you're betting, remember, we'll go back and recap this. So we said the Bills are a 14-point favorite. I'm going to see if that changed. See if it changed. Yeah, it looks like you're still 14-point favorites. So again, if you're teasing that Buffalo-Miami game and you're doing a 7-point teaser, you get the Bills down to 7. I think you can't pass on that. I think there's more risk if you're taking the Dolphins at 21 because there are scenarios where the Bills win this game 40-3. There's those scenarios. So I think you tease it down to 7 if you're going with the teaser there. If you're betting the line on this one, obviously the Bills are the better bet. But again, the path I laid out for Miami, it's very real. It's very possible, and the game could be muddy. So I still think teasing it down to 7 if you're teasing it is the best way to go. Man, the money line is minus 950 on the Bills, rightfully. That's at 14. That's what you're looking at. The Giants in Minnesota is a 3-point line. I would like to take, if I'm teasing this, I'm teasing the Giants. I'm taking the 7-point teaser. I'm teasing that to 10. If 6-point teaser is still fine, if you're now only doing 6, 9 is great. It's more than 1 score. I don't see the Vikings beating a team by more than 1 score in a playoff game. I just don't think they're that team right now. Defensively, especially if they're playing with the lead, the Giants will be able to come back. So I think that's the way to go. You could make the other case on the other side. If you did the teaser, then the Vikings would get 3, but that's dangerous. I think that the safer route here is the Giants plus 9 with the teaser, as opposed to the teaser where the Vikings are getting 3. That one, they have a chance of pushing too. As I said with the Ravens and the Bengals, you could tease either side of this. If you're teasing 6, you're still getting the Bengals at minus 2.5. That's beautiful. You're less than a field goal. Fantastic. The Ravens, that puts them over 2 touchdowns. Either side of that would work well. The more probable side to me is the Ravens plus 14.5. That's the more probable side because, again, is John Harbaugh really going to have his team come out and get blown out in the playoff game? I do not see it. Their personnel overall is offensive line. They run. Their defense is fundamentally sound. They know this opponent. I would take the 14.5. But, again, the Bengals are a great play because, again, if you're getting less than a field goal, they probably win this game. But I think there's a higher probability of – I'm going to say the probability is better taking the teased part of the Ravens. Now, I will come on tomorrow on Monday for those that are coming in, and we will definitely talk about Dallas and Tampa Bay. But if you're doing a teaser that includes that game with today's game, so you want to make a 3-team teaser out of it, right now Cowboys are minus 2.5. So basically, if I'm teasing this game, all day long, I'm taking the Bucks. You're adding 6 points. That's 8.5, more than a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. If the Cowboys win, I don't see a scenario where they're blowing out the Bucs. Just don't see it. Cowboys have not been that team. They blew out Minnesota, fine, whatever. Tampa Bay is playing a little bit better. They're a bad team. Dallas is very inconsistent. I just don't see Tampa on their home field getting blown out by more than one touchdown. So we'll break that game down on Monday. Monday, I'll be in about 5 Eastern. My bringing back the beard next year from Gary Ouch. Gary, I tell you what happened. So I shaved my head because it needed to go for years. There's a big old bald spot in the back. And so that went. And when this was left, dude, I look scary. Not in a good way. Not like I call the news pit, like call the local news scary. So that had to go, man. That's all it was. Yeah, so not so good there. But yeah, thanks for asking. Anybody else have questions? I'll be happy to answer them. If you have questions about the games, anything you want to bet, I'll give you a couple seconds to ask that up. If you're not following me on Twitter, please do at Jim Coventry NFL. I put up threads. I put up a lot of stuff, information, actionable advice. You'll catch me on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Channel. Thanks, Gary. We're off today. Well, next weekend, though, through the rest of this month, we'll still be on Saturdays. Myself and Mario Puig, 1 to 3 Eastern, will break down all weekend games. And then on Sunday, 1 to 3 with Alan Sassi Borador. Thanks, man. So we're good there. So, yes. And then also with RotoWire, if you want to get 2 days free behind the paywall, rotowire.com/try. Be awesome to have you check us out. And if you're on YouTube, which many of you are, please give us a like and subscribe. We'd appreciate that. If you could do that on Instagram, I'm not even sure how. I'm so old, man. I don't know how YouTube works. But if there's something there, we'd appreciate that too. All right, everybody, I don't see any questions. So good luck. Be back on Monday. We'll go over the whole weekend, and we'll break down that Bucs Cowboys game. Have a great day, and we will talk soon.